Plumes of smoke from a chemical plant fire spilling over into other metro Atlanta cities. The alarming health concern in Rockdale and neighboring counties continues. The sky in Rockdale County is full of smoke as we pass 24 hours since a fire broke out at a BioLab chemical plant. We're following the latest here on Atlanta News First Plus, including taking you out to a news conference where Gwinnett officials are going to be discussing their ongoing response efforts, as well as some concerns residents have raised about the smell of chlorine in the county. We are getting you the latest information. At the end of this news conference, we'll also take you back out to Rockdale County with a look at the situation there. Right now, residents are being asked to shelter in their homes if they can in Rockdale County or evacuate. Now, it does vary county by county depending on where this plume is, and officials are following the direction of air changes and movements. Let's take you to the news conference as we're focusing on Gwinnett County.
Brief overviews from Office of Emergency Management Director Michael Shaw, Fire and Emergency Services Chief Fred Cephas, EPA On-Scene Coordinator Brian Vassar, as well as Water Resources Assistant Director Charlie Roberts, also up here to answer any questions. So the folks I just mentioned will be giving overviews, but to answer any additional questions, we also have our Gwinnett Police Chief J.D. McClure, and of course, the woman behind it all, Chairwoman Nicole Love Hendrickson. So without further ado, I'll turn this over to Michael Shaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Yesterday morning, our office became aware of the BioLab fire in Rockdale County in Conyers. Our duty officer, who remains on duty for 24 hours, monitored the call, was receiving information both from GMA as well as EPD and EPA as that situation developed, in case there was any kind of need for residents of Gwinnett County to take any kind of action. At no point did it reach that level, so our office continued to monitor the call, the incident, as it moved into today. Should there have been any need to take action, our office would have been tasked with sending out a wireless emergency alert. The wireless emergency alert is a text-like notification that is enabled on most cell phones. It would have given instructions for people if they needed to shelter in place or evacuate. For our office, it did not reach any of the criteria from the subject matter experts that we were receiving information from. That included EPA, GMA, DPH. We were not receiving any kind of instructions that it was necessary for the public to take any kind of action. Thank you.
And Fred Cephas from Gwinnett County Fire and Emergency Services. And in preparation to the events that happened in Rockdale, we initially went into an emergency operations plan, which is we have to be mindful anytime we have a large influx of calls coming to our area. So we have to be mindful of having units in service for true emergencies. So that's the first thing we did. We created an incident action plan to let our internal personnel know exactly our plan in mitigating this incident, as well as sending somebody to the emergency 911 center to help triage calls. We felt like it was appropriate to do so. We also felt like this was wind blowing the fog into our area, causing a large number of complaints. Last but not least, we do have a hazardous material team who went out and did their own monitoring throughout the county and found no areas of concern. So that put us at ease and just had us monitoring the area, coming up to the Emergency Operations Center to ensure that we get the proper messaging out on behalf of the Gwinnett County Fire Department, the county, and the Emergency Management Agency.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Vassar. I'm an on-scene coordinator with the U.S. EPA. I'm based out of Region 4. Yesterday morning, EPA was notified of the fire at BioLabs. We ended up responding to that to support the response, primarily through air monitoring. So we've been on site since yesterday morning, conducting air monitoring, both at the site itself, within the exclusion zone, and now continuing out beyond the exclusion zone or evacuation zone that was established in Rockdale County, working into Gwinnett County. And as of now, outside of the site itself, or just inside of the evacuation zone, we've not seen any levels of our constituents of concern that would warrant having contacted Gwinnett County and let them know to issue a shelter in place or to consider a shelter in place, very much as the fire department mentioned. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Charlie Roberts, Gwinnett County Department of Water Resources. One of the things that I want to make sure that everybody knows is that our water is safe. It has been. The water in the pipes is safe to drink as always, and it will meet the high standard that our customers have come to expect. Additionally, for the supply of water, we draw water from Lake Lanier very deeply, and we are constantly monitoring for water quality changes, and we have seen none, we expect none, but we will obviously continue to monitor the water as we always do as a part of our normal course of business. Thank you.
Now, with that said, we'll turn it over to questions that you may have, and if you also need the names and spellings and titles of the folks up here today, I can give that to you afterwards.
Can we hear from the gentleman from the EPA and just talk about how large of an area are we talking about that you all are monitoring right now? Are you able to come to the microphone? I mean, we just got this alert from GMA saying that, letting folks know that you're monitoring. So talk about how large that area is.
Yeah, so our monitoring has been done in kind of three locations, right? One is right directly on site. We're doing air monitoring to protect worker personnel that are in the zone, that are helping to remove parts of the building and helping to stop the reactions that are ongoing. We're also doing air monitoring in the evacuation zone that was established in Rockdale County, as well as in their shelter-in-place zone, which was the entirety of the county. And then we're slowly expanding out from there. So we've been working our way north as the wind shifts or something like that. So we're trying to cover as best we can the areas that are potentially impacted. We're now getting some calls through various EMAs that are helping us identify areas that we can go and try and identify what the odor complaint may be, and how that might be impacting people in that area.
We've heard a lot about chlorine. What are you all finding when you're testing this?
So the primary constituents that we're worried about are chlorine or hydrochloric acid. Both of those are given off in this reaction that's kind of ongoing at the site. We're seeing very little chlorine or HCl outside of within the immediate range of the site itself.
Is there any concern for people who may be in sensitive groups, people who are immunocompromised or have other chronic health issues, if they are exposed to any of this?
Sensitive groups can always, they're called a sensitive group. So they can be more sensitive to chlorine or HCl if they were exposed, but we're not seeing levels. Most of our action levels that we use try to account for sensitive groups as well. So we're not seeing any of those levels right now, but that is always a concern that there may be a sensitive population that could be impacted during an event like this.
There's just a lot of skepticism in the community about what kind of testing is being done. Can you just kind of speak to what kind of testing you're doing, what that looks like? You try to maybe reassure some people that are really skeptical.
Sure. So right now we're using air monitors. So they're a live read instrument, right? We get data from them every second, and we're able to. Some of them are set up stationary. Some of them we're taking around with us so that we can go to locations that either have odor complaints or locations where there may be sensitive populations, so that we can get real-time data back to inform decisions. So earlier today, we used that real-time data to help inform Rockdale County that maybe they could shrink their shelter-in-place orders or shrink their evacuation orders to try and target where the plume is going. So we are the two instruments that we're using. There's a single point monitor, which we use for detecting hydrochloric acid, and then we're using ray systems to monitor for chlorine gas.
And moving into the evening, how are you tracking the plume? I'm sure you're looking at weather forecasts and staying on top of that, but ultimately, where do you think it's headed, and where does your work turn to from here?
So during the day, it's easier to track than at night, but we do look at the forecast, and then we can track it with our roving monitors as well to try and kind of determine if we're still in the plume or not. Things change. Every now and then you'll have an inversion either in the evening or in the morning, and so things will sit lower or the winds will shift. When we try to keep up with that, that's part of the reason that we have stationary monitors in place, so we can deploy around an area so that we can try and catch it before, as it moves, and then roll our roving monitoring in that direction instead.
We're getting, emails from folks saying, there's clouds in over there, neighborhoods, we're missing neighborhoods, but also smells bad. So if it's not hazardous, what exactly is in this cloud that's causing that smell?
So sometimes you're able to smell chlorine at level. It has a very low odor threshold, so you may be able to smell it at a level that is below what would be considered an action level for us, or that would be considered hazardous to an individual. So that tends to be what they're experiencing. I can't speak for all of the complaints because we haven't investigated all of them, but we do try. But typically it's that there's a very low odor threshold that would be below the hazardous level in the air.
Is there a possibility that these levels could rise, especially in southern Gwinnett, as the cloud kind of moves?
It can be very weather dependent, depending on which direction the wind is blowing and the heat of the fire and how the plume moves. The plume can go higher or lower and sit. I don't know that I could answer that really.
Is the agency that's going to be in charge of investigating after this plume has died down and things like that, investigating what exactly went wrong here? Will that be almost?
So not for my portion of EPA, at least. My portion of EPA, I'm in the Superfund and Emergency Management Division, and so our goal is to support the response right now, help us get it cleaned up, get all the material that is there reacting now, get it stabilized or treated to stop the release. That's our primary goal.
What was some confusion yesterday that I was up there myself? First, they said to stay indoors, and then next, they had evacuation. So, can you explain to us why was that the case?
So sometimes they're shifting information. Sometimes you will have an initial shelter-in-place order, and then as you get more information, you may move that to an evacuation order if you find that it's more protective. It's not necessarily confusion. It's just as more information comes in, we're constantly evaluating what's most protective.
And there was some guidance yesterday regarding not using air conditioning. Do you have any update on that? There were a lot of viewer questions wondering why air conditioning might not be the best idea right now.
So when you're sheltered in place, sometimes you may be advised not to run your air conditioner. Running your air conditioner may just increase air infiltration or increase the air exchanges of your house, which may, depending on a leaky door or a leaky window, it may pull air in from outside. So by not running the air conditioning, you're kind of staying, you may be avoiding that.
Let me step in.
Yes.
Just to clarify, this is a debrief on Gwinnett County. So any questions about Gwinnett, we are happy to answer, but we can't assume or answer any questions about Rockdale County. So the folks you see up here, strictly Gwinnett.
Shifting back to Gwinnett, if you could just talk to us about the amount of calls for service, any medical transports that you think are directly a result of this plume.
Yes, sir. As I said earlier, we had one or two people in the emergency 911 center. They got about 179 total calls that range from assist citizen, breathing concerns, gas leaks, things of that nature that were probably in regards to the situation that happened in Rockdale.
But no transports or any other medical situations that you can talk about?
I can't confirm the amount of transports or how serious the issues were because I haven't looked into those.
Can you say where the calls are coming from predominantly right now, or?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Can you say where in Gwinnett all the calls are coming from now? Are you getting a lot from, is it kind of heavy in South Gwinnett?
Yeah, we had a lot of calls heavy down in the Snellville area, but I can't say specifically what calls were attached to what area.
Does anyone want to put a line under your message to Gwinnett County residents, you know, how they should feel, Chairwoman or even the Chief?
Well, definitely, we're just understand that our emergency management center, the public safety entities in the county are closely monitoring the situation in collaboration with EPA. And if we had any concerns, we'll definitely communicate that out to our citizens and our residents of this county. At this time, we feel confident that the decisions we've made and the preparations we've made and the monitoring that we have done thus far are adequate, and we feel that residents of Gwinnett County are safe and secure at this time. I'll add to that because we do have people with pre-existing conditions who are predisposed to aerosol irritants. Please do not hesitate to contact your emergency 911 center if you have any type of concerns, because we'll definitely come out to assess the situation. But just know that we're doing everything that we can to be prepared for a situation worsening. But we feel confident at this moment that the situation is subsiding and things are getting back to a normal level.
So good afternoon. Chief J.D. McClure, the Gwinnett County Police Department. And from a police perspective, and looking first and foremost at 911, as Chief Cephas mentioned, we did see an increase in calls, but more than enough staffing on hand so that the 911 center was not adversely affected. And then the same for our field operations, our officers out in the field. Our commanders report normal operations there. So in terms of service delivery from the police department, we were not adversely affected.
Was there any uptick in any motor vehicle incidents this morning due to visibility?
Not that I've been made aware of. And then finally, I would add that our first order of business was to establish a unified incident command here at our Emergency Operations Center. So the fire department's in the room, the police department's in the room, the Office of Emergency Management, just ensuring that strategically our planning is in sync and that our message in terms of communications is the exact same. So I'm happy to answer any other questions from the police perspective. Thank you.
With that said, if you have no further questions, we'll wrap this up, and you're free to grab anyone that you see up here if you want a one-on-one. All right, thank you.
All right, so you just heard from Gwinnett County officials. I know some of you jumped in the middle of this news conference. We're going to go through everything that was said. I did just want to show you some pictures that you all have sent in to us, some that our reporters across Metro Atlanta have been following and documenting for you. This is a fire that broke out yesterday. So we are continuing to discuss and monitor the impacts. I did just want to note for those of you that have been following this, you might have noticed during this news conference, and many of us in the Gwinnett and Fulton, DeKalb areas received this here public safety alert. I'm going to read that to you because I know you can't see my phone that closely. But Georgia Emergency Management Agency, Homeland Security Agency, on behalf of the Environmental Protection Division, local area emergency, saying local area emergency due to Rockdale County BioLab fire. The EPA is monitoring air quality for chlorine and related compounds. Chemical levels are unlikely to cause harm to most people, and that was echoed here in this news conference. Just for the purpose of this stream, I just want to make sure you all know this focused on Gwinnett specifically. I know there were a lot of questions about your specific areas, and there are residents that are reporting this chlorine-like smell in Fulton, in DeKalb, and some other parts, especially in the Rockdale area. In Rockdale County, do make sure you are following the latest from us here at Atlanta News First. Have the Atlanta News First app on your phone, because we are updating you on what your county officials want you to know if you are in the evacuation zone or if you are being asked to shelter in place. The general advisement right now is if you are smelling chlorine or seeing that significant haze, that you do remain indoors as much as you can and close your doors and windows. You also want to turn off any ventilation and AC. Now, we have had a few of you folks calling in as well and talking about your concerns if you are someone with a disability or you use a ventilator or some sort of air assistance, if this was going to impact you. Folks with immunocompromised systems as well. The messaging that we have gotten from the EPA is that these are being seen as acceptable levels in certain counties of chlorine levels. So again, we're following the latest on this. If you are unfamiliar just with the background of what exactly took place, a sprinkler at the BioLab plant on Old Covington Highway in Conyers malfunctioned Sunday morning and sprayed water on a chemical that well, let's just say reacts to water, leading to a reaction that now we're seeing as a large hazardous plume. Now, BioLab has been putting out statements and talking about their own response, but the main thing I want you all to follow is what your individual counties are saying. I do want to take you to our website here at AtlantaNewsFirst.com so that you can see. I linked to this below for those of you on YouTube Live, the latest updates that are coming in county by county, including that evacuation zone, so you can check if you are in that area. Hopefully you've already been alerted and notified of everything that you need to do, but all of the information that is pouring in, we're putting on this one web article for you so you can access it in the app or on your desktop, and you can see county by county individual information. Now, just to put into perspective, inhaling chlorine concentration higher than 15 ppm, that can lead to certain respiratory distress with airway constrictions and fluid gathering in the lungs. We have not heard that the air plume that we're seeing here is at this level or nearing this level at all. However, we do know that exposure to 1 ppm or upwards of 10 ppm concentrations can cause as much as nasal irritation, sore throat, and coughing, which we have heard from some of you calling us here in the newsroom and talking with us in your communities that you have been experiencing symptoms of. Most people have said that they can smell the chlorine, but that it wasn't affecting them seriously. So that is what we're following. If you do think that you might have symptoms of chlorine poisoning, that can include rapid breathing, blue discoloration of the skin, wheezing, runny nose, and excessive salivation. You can also go to the EPA's website and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, as well as AtlantaNewsFirst.com, and we have a lot of information for you on symptoms and where you should navigate and who you should contact. Primarily, we heard from Gwinnett officials saying if you think you have serious medical issues that are being exasperated by this plume, do contact them and they can either respond to your area or help you navigate through that. We have Atlanta News First reporters across the counties following this closely. I want to send it out now to Atlanta News First reporter Sarah Hammond.
A fire at a chemical plant is still causing problems for 17,000 people living in Rockdale County.
The police came to our door and they knocked and was like, there's a hazard at BioLab.
Now the Environmental Protection Agency has detected chlorine in the air from that fire. Rockdale County fire officials say a sprinkler at the BioLab plant on Old Covington Highway malfunctioned Sunday morning and sprayed water on a chemical, causing a reaction that created this large hazardous plume. Firefighters put out the fire on the roof, but it reignited around noon Sunday, prompting an evacuation order for anyone between Sigmund Road and I-20. Now, areas outside of Rockdale County are beginning to see that reaction in their area. On X, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens said, quote, Atlanta Fire Rescue is going out with detectors to various spots east to see what's in the air. Gwinnett County schools have canceled all outdoor activities and events. In a statement from BioLab Monday morning, they said they're working with local authorities and, quote, have deployed specialized teams from out of state to the site to bolster and support their efforts. We are all focused on remediating the situation as rapidly as possible. Rockdale County Fire Chief Marion McDaniel says this is not the first time this has happened. The EPA says the plant caught on fire in 2004.
The longer it goes, the better it's getting. So we're mitigating to it. It's a slow process, but we are working to get through it.
There is that evacuation zone map for you. I know a couple of you were asking on our YouTube live about that. Again, this is in the immediate Rockdale area, I would say within a 10-mile radius of the BioLab chemical fire. That fire, I just want to clarify, has been fully extinguished. It is currently being investigated. The concern right now remains with the plume. As you heard from Gwinnett County officials, as they were explaining it, a low-pressure system pushed fog into the Gwinnett County area, and then a lack of wind is causing that smell, that chlorine smell that some of you are describing, to linger. So the smell should dissipate in a couple of hours to days, we've been told by officials, but it does depend on the wind direction. So we have our Atlanta News First meteorologist tracking that very closely. And of course, we are in contact with emergency management to get you some answers for your specific counties if you are smelling chlorine. Right now, the latest update that we're getting from officials is they are advising that everybody in the area of Gwinnett, DeKalb, and especially Rockdale, if you can, you should monitor your air quality by staying indoors, closing your windows and doors, as well as turning off any ventilation systems until you have been told until we can tell you really by officials that it is safe to turn that AC back on. Again, if you are not smelling chlorine at this time, it's not as much of a concern, but we have heard from many of you, as well as officials have heard and are responding, that folks are smelling that strong chlorine scent. So we are going to stay on top of this here on Atlanta News First Plus. You can go to that, again, that website, atlantanewsfirst.com. Easiest way, though, to get the latest updates, as we are going to continue to stay on top of this, is to go get the Atlanta News First app. You download it on your phone, you have the notification set to breaking news, and any major updates for your specific area will get sent directly to your phone as a push notification. So we will stay on top of this here on Atlanta News First Plus. We're going to get another update, another look out at these affected counties here in about an hour at the top of our news at 3. Stick with us.